people on the board thought they were still in the dark about what happened on last Thursday. And as a result, I sent the report out, but they still felt that they were dark on it. So what I'm going to do right now is read what happened Thursday from Empress. First of all,
Verified by outside sources, not just the Empress report.
agreed, sorry. First of all, there was never a call made to the police department. The gentleman's son ran to the police department. So how much time that took, that I can't answer. The police department notified EMS at 10:32 p.m. The fly car acknowledged the call at 10:32 p.m., and Empress Dispatch is notified at 10:33 p.m. The Empress Communication Supervisor tells 60 Control, please go mutual aid. At that time, there were no available Empress units, and they were 30 minutes away, which would not be appropriate to send. The fly car arrives on the scene at 10:34, 2 minutes after he gets the call. 60 Control tones out Mount Vernon, who was unavailable, New Rochelle, who was unavailable, and tones out Larchmont Volunteer Ambulance. Larchmont Volunteer Ambulance accepts the call, responding at 10:42 p.m. Remember, this all started at 10:32 p.m. The Larchmont Ambulance arrived at 10:51 p.m. and starts transporting with the fly car paramedic on board. Both units arrive at Montefiore Hospital at 11:20 p.m. From the time of the EMS notification to the mutual aid ambulance was on the scene was 19 minutes. The Empress supervisor spoke to the fly car paramedic, who states that the patient was stable at the time. The paramedic and police sergeant kept contacting 60 Control for an update on the mutual aid ambulance. So there was no delay in for the paramedic arriving on the scene, and the ambulance came from Larchmont 19 minutes after the phone call. Anybody have any questions from the board on what I just?
I think one of the things that we were trying to clarify was that when Empress accepted the call, there was a 5-minute delay getting back to 60 Control to say they didn't have an ambulance available. That 5 minutes added to the total amount. So if they had said it when they took the call, we don't have anybody, then it would have gone to mutual aid immediately. That was verified by 60 Control.
The other thing that I have to mention is that unfortunately the patient did not make it and died in the ambulance from a heart attack. Any questions from the board?
Just, can I clarify, so this is an incident that took place last
Thursday.
May 18th.
May 18th.
On Clay Avenue.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No?
I guess just a
me.
procedural one. When somebody runs in, is there somebody at the desk who immediately clocks that?
That would have to be answered by Pelham.
Okay. I'm just asking for procedural. So we don't know if he showed up at 10:30 or 10:31 or,
No, the EMS was notified at 10:32,
okay, so he could have been there, okay. Thank you.
and the police did go to the house and then got the fly car.
Okay. Thank you.
It was an unfortunate incident. Any other questions from the board? Okay. I see we have a gathering of people. So does anybody want to say anything? Please stand up here and state your name and your address.
Jonathan Casper, 10
You can
Elm
fix the
Tree.
camera. Okay, yeah. You want to turn the camera? All right. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Should I face you or the camera?
I don't, we, all
Whatever.
right, Jonathan.
That's fine, just like,
Yeah.
So my question is, from what I thought I heard you say, the fly car got there at 10,
34.
34.
and he got to the hospital, or like there seemed to be like a long gap from.
They
something-
got, the paramedic went on the ambulance at 11:13.
What happened in that 40 minutes? Like, why wasn't he transferred to the hospital?
They were
immediately?
working, the paramedic was working on him and stabilized him. And the ambulance got there at 10:51. And why they waited 10 minutes to get him on board, they probably were working on it together.
Okay. 'Cause-
But
That's
that's a
speculation.
guess.
We weren't there, we
No,
weren't
no, I
witness,
understand,
right,
just
but-
wanted to make sure I understood this. So,
Yeah.
several years ago, the volunteer fire department lost a former volunteer in a very similar circumstance. He had a medical incident, there was a phone call made. He lived on Monroe, fly car got there, they were working on him. I got the call, I was on a train to Metro North on my way home. I got to his house a half an hour later, they were still working on him. It wasn't an ambulance that was working on him, so somebody was working on him. And after I got there, they were still doing something for 15 minutes. And to me, I feel like we live in a wonderful community, we pay taxes, and I can't think of a better use of our taxes than something that's gonna protect us, our kids, our parents. I mean, I think it's paramount that we have the most elaborate, up-to-date use of medical resources that we could possibly have. There's no reason that these people should have died for nothing. So if anything could come of this, let's get some sort of 24-hour dedicated ambulance, something, so that this doesn't happen again, so no one else has to go through this.
We
So
are
that's-
currently,
And I thank you for what you guys do, I know it's.
we
thank
sent
you.
this out 5 months ago. There's,
Not 18 months ago,
RFP.
5
5
months
months
ago.
RFP.
and we're working with Empress and we're working with Eastchester
Eastchester.
on that exact issue, so.
And
hopefully-
various models. So there's not one straight path we would consider.
Right,
We just had a meeting last Thursday. We're trying to be as creative as possible. Let me explain that. Our budget cannot be altered in the middle of the year. These are laws that we cannot change. So therefore, that expenditure, whatever it is, would have to be included in October budget for 2024. Okay? In the interim, we are trying to create a system that may or may not include Empress, that's creative, that gives us that coverage that we need. Because we only have two paths right now. The path to appropriate the funds in October, and the path to improve what we have right now. Unfortunately, only 2 companies responded out of the multitude of companies in this county. And that's because, as you know, of the incredible shortage
Yep.
and stretched as everybody is. So unfortunately, we were very disappointed that it was only 2 companies but we had to deal with the 2 companies. So that is where we are. We're in negotiation right now for an interim solution.
And Jonathan, just to add to the amount of increased monies that we would need would be anywhere from $1.5 million to $1.7 million. And our current budget is only $4 million.
I would be confident in saying that if the people in this town and village would certainly reach into their pockets if need be.
We're gonna
to
put
get-
you on the front
Yes,
line.
yes. If
We're
you
bringing
tell
you
people
with
that
us.
our budget is
I'm being
limited and
serious.
you want, I'm sure we could find people that would help to sponsor it or to do something or.
But we're definitely working on that.
Yeah, all right. Well,
Thank you.
for
Thank
what
you, John.
do.
Thank you.
Dan, can I just clarify, the 1.5, 1.7, that would be for combined also having the fly car?
In addition to the
In
flight.
addition to the fly car, right, okay.
We're not talking about removing it.
Right.
The flight car is about $275,000.
Okay.
And that,
This
the
would be
ambulance
on
is much.
top of it, right.
Anyone else would like to make a comment?
Stephen Shakeen, 917 Washington. Actually, some questions and comments, right? So, first off, just to echo the sentiment, it's ridiculous that we don't have a dedicated resource here for an ambulance. But you mentioned another 1.5 to 1.7 million. Is that a gross cost or a net cost? Because my understanding is if you get transported, insurance is going to pay back. So what is the,
We don't get the insurance.
so who gets it?
That would be the net cost.
So is that factored into the RFP?
It-
Into the number?
They
they're
have
giving?
factored it in, yes.
That they're, so the 1.5 to 1.7 includes whatever
That is
They would
correct.
get that.
revenue they're
They
gonna receive
They
from
think-
insurance
It would be a 50-50 split.
between who?
Hmm?
Between who?
Us and them.
And them. They're not gonna do the transporting for nothing.
So that, okay, so if insurance pays the cost, they're gonna keep all that money?
50%.
50%.
And then you're gonna get the other 50%? Okay,
That's,
so-
That's one,
that's
So
that's
your
one
$1.5 million
scenario.
cost takes into account the 50% you're
Yeah,
gonna
but you
get.
don't, it's not as much as you think it is.
Understood, but that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I
Is it-
hear
is it
you.
being
For the
taken-
last few years, it's totaled around $300,000.
Okay,
Because what happens is, number one, people don't pay.
Their
They don't-
insurance.
They don't have insurance, so there's a lot of, and I can give you the piece of paper that has that all on it, that they did for us for the last 5 years. 5 years.
so second point again on money is, correct me if I'm wrong, we're paying per $1 million assessment, town taxes of $410, is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And school taxes is how much per $1 million?
Well, it's $91 million budget that just.
Understood, how much is it per $1 million?
Probably.
The
I'm
answer
not
is
a math
approximately
major.
$17,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this town doesn't blink an eye when that school budget goes
Said
up.
the same thing.
Everyone's
We-
paying, oh, $500, oh, it's nothing, it's
Right,
$500,
it's the
right?
same amount.
You're asking us to pay an extra $350 when it's literally life or death, okay?
I agree with you.
That's nothing, and to what John just said, we have enough money over here. Raise my taxes by $350, $500.
I can
I'm willing to pay it because
I can tell
I've
you-
asked you personally, if I have a heart attack right now, who's gonna save me?
I-
I don't like the answer.
I can tell you people have said no.
I don't care what.
Well, no,
Who
wait,
has said
wait,
no?
wait,
I'm
wait.
sorry to get, who has said no? Because no one's
When I
asked me.
presented it 3 times, people
who?
said no.
To who?
I sent it to the senior citizens,
Okay,
I
Let,
said-
you know what? Let him talk.
all right,
Pelham Civics,
mm-hmm,
and my own household.
okay. That's not the community at large.
No, it's not. And what I was,
That's my
so
point.
let me point out something to you, and we talked about it this morning. I'm thinking of putting out on the ballot a proposition and letting all the residents vote on whether they want to increase their taxes by $350, $400. And I can do that by August.
Okay.
But if Jonathan sells it for me and you sell it for me and you sell it for me, then maybe I don't have to do any of that. And I've been talking to the board about this for the past 3 months. Talk to some people, get me some response about raising your taxes.
We've considered a survey, and one of our board members graciously put a framework together on a survey. You know, we're on the fence about a survey because sometimes you get
Low response.
crap back, excuse my French. And some of the other institutions in town have done surveys, and they haven't been very successful for them. So we're talking about a combination of things to glean the information from the public, which is the dog and pony show that Dan would go out on and
With the
I
chief.
think we should do that as a
Sure.
board,
Well,
because we're all on board on this.
I agree, but I think-
We spoke to Eastchester Thursday night, and they did something in 1995 that they said they had to get the public knowingly what's going on because people were against it originally getting an ambulance. So they gave us some ideas as well. But if anybody's watching this and hear you and hear Jonathan, that only is going to help me, help us.
Well, not if they hear me. But
No,
I
actually,
think-
you're Mr.
Okay.
No Taxes.
Exactly.
100%. So if you're saying
Yeah.
it,
I think
it's life and death. That's
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what I made my
can't
point.
have a.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Hi, my name is Carly Cacavalli, and I am 48 hours post-op, and I share that because I thought it was that important.
If you want to sit down and talk to us, that's
Yeah,
fine.
It's fine, so it's that important for me to be here tonight. As some of you know, my son was injured in the last modified football game of the year, and he was on that field for about 45 minutes. The fly car response time was 8 minutes, the ambulance was 26 minutes, but by the time they got him in that ambulance, it was a really, really long time. okay? A really long time, and I know we've had conversations. I walked in late tonight, and I don't know the 5 months versus 18 months comment, and the correction, but I sensed a little bit of like upset or attitude, and we're all here to save lives, I'm just gonna be honest
No,
with
someone,
you.
Someone
someone here,
misspoke, so I
someone here
was-
misspoke
Okay,
in
so
a
let's
public
correct
forum.
it then, right? We're not
Yeah.
all perfect, we're not all perfect, and you could do it though
I'm
without,
not
we're here,
asking to
we're
be
here to
perfect,
save.
but I'm asking,
but I'm saying
knowledge
in the
should be,
tone.
should be
Okay.
right.
Okay, so absolutely, but then just say it in a very nice way, it's not what you say,
Well, I
it's how you say
apologize
it.
if I didn't say it in
So
a nice way.
I walked in not knowing what that was about, but I sensed anger, and I was angry when my son laid there on the ground. And honestly, once he got in that ambulance and we went to Jacoby, because it's a level 1 trauma center, and they were afraid that it was a neck and spine injury, okay, there were 50 people, kids, in that pediatric waiting room. And if the NYPD hadn't made a call to say rush him to the front, my son would have been on that board even longer. Thank God it was a concussion and not neck or spine, but that was really scary. And put my son aside for a minute, my phone in the emergency room was blowing up, not just, once they found out he was stable, those kids on the field for both teams watching him, not moving for that long, those kids were petrified, okay? So once they knew my son was okay, it was like Tristan shakings, Jay shaking, I mean, those kids were rattled to the core for him being on the ground that long. So it literally is life or death. And if it isn't an increase in taxes, right now there's a major push for Friends of Pelham Sports or whatever to do a big gym. I mean, so, okay, like, let's lead the charge on an ambulance if that's it. Like, it's literally life or death. So if you poll to find out who's had other incidents in town when it comes to an ambulance, I'm sure you'll get a bunch of people who are willing to help lead the charge, me included.
Good.
Because before my son, my mother was also a Pelham Manor resident who fell down her stairs and died from her brain trauma, okay, in 2010. Honestly, with 3 young kids at the time and being pregnant with my 4th, I didn't look into response times, but who knows? Who knows how long this has been going on? And it is literally life or death, and a solution needs to be found, whether it's private, public, taxes, what have you, it's that important. And it was that important for me to come here today and make sure everyone understands how serious this is.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Lori Lember. I'm actually an internist at Jacoby for over 30 years, and I'm just here to speak about how essential it is to have an ambulance, because someone who has a cardiac arrest or a stroke out of hospital, less than a 10% survival rate. And if you don't have, even with a fly car and with defibrillators, you really need trained EMT, but you also need medications and time to the hospital. Jacoby's a very busy emergency room. We have cardiac arrests and strokes coming in. It's really timely, because if you don't get it early enough and you can't give anticoagulant medications, antithrombotic medications, people have either death or severe disability. And it's a very nice town in Westchester, and it's, how do you say to a 61-year-old who died to the family, well, I'm sorry, we didn't have an ambulance for you. Whereas if you were in the city, if you were in the Bronx, where I work, and those are patients that a lot of times are, don't have insurance or are undocumented, but they can call 911 and get an ambulance to bring them almost immediately to the hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just make one more comment that I forgot about Empress? Empress, and just in terms of just how they run their business and housekeeping, they sent me 12 bills for that ambulance, and insurance paid it. And with everything else going on, I let them pile up. Finally, I got to the bottom of it, and they were like, oh, sorry, 12 bills for $583, and it was paid by insurance. So I'm just saying, in terms of just back-end housekeeping, they clearly don't have it together. So, like, I actually filed through the school because it happened with the school and the whole thing. It was paid in full. Paid in full. They just kept sending bill after bill after bill after bill after bill, which makes you question how they just run their operation. How do you send 12 bills for something that's been paid in full?
Well, that is one of the reasons why an RFP went out, because of our unhappiness with the service that we're getting. So I hear you loud and clear. It's not the same company that we contracted with 10 years ago. In the beginning it was a very face-to-face, family-owned company. It's a different company now. And we realize that, we understand that. Again, I'll say it was very disappointing that we only got 2 responses to an RFP that could have been picked up by 20 companies. So,
That is crazy. Any other comments?
Can I just say one more thing? Has any consideration been given to using the fire department to go to these type of calls? Because number one, if you need to remove somebody, you know, a fly car comes, it's 1, maybe 2 people. Fire department, you're gonna have 3, 4, 5 very fit people. They're gonna have a
it
back
does
door.
happen in the village of Pelham,
Okay.
Not in the village of
not in the
Pelham.
village of Pelham Manor.
Okay.
The village of Pelham Manor has the police as the responding unit, and the village of Pelham has the fire department responding. And if that could be changed, you'd have to talk to Pelham Manor.
I will do that.
Any other people want to make a comment? Excuse me.
Caveat of, then we have to also.
Thank you. And I believe most of you know this, but if we do get our own ambulance, it is still on call by other villages.
There's no guarantee it will be here.
Because, based on mutual aid, and last year in the county of Westchester, there was 7,800 mutual aid calls, which means, like for instance, the Larchmont volunteer came down here last Thursday. If something changed, matter of fact, we would have to go someplace. And it doesn't mean that your ambulance will be here 24
No,
hours.
you don't. I saw your comment, sir. You don't have to. You can refuse to go to mutual aid, but the more you refuse, the less you
they'll
get back.
You don't.
So
But also-
that is the balance of participating or not participating in mutual aid. And that is why everybody's angry at this town, because we don't participate in mutual aid. We know that. We understand that. So it would be a decision to participate or not participate in it.
To that point, can you give us statistics, how many ambulance on a monthly basis or on an annual basis?
880
880 what?
Calls per
calls
year.
per year.
That's flat, how many times do we need an ambulance?
Out of the 880,
Yes.
I'd have to go
That's
back
the
and look
difference.
at
We can
that.
find
That's the
that out.
difference,
We
because
can
you
find that out.
You can refuse mutual aid, right, if we have a lot of stuff going on over here, right? So you have to do an analysis.
It's a balance.
Yeah, so do you have those, can you provide that to us?
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look at the stats and see how many were transported out of the total number. That's what you're asking, right? Yeah.
Just for like reference, last Thursday, the same day this happened, my neighbor called 911. There was an emergency in her house, and I watched as, at first I saw the police cars show up, and then the fire department came, and I put my watch on because I wanted to see, and the ambulance was there within less than 7 minutes. Just, it was available and it arrived, and I'm just saying that happens, and then unfortunately, there are times when it doesn't arrive, and I think we wanna get to a point where we can pretty much count on an ambulance arriving in the amount of time, which I think the industry standard is like less than 10 minutes, it's 8 minutes.
I think so, Chris.
I think that's the goal, and I think this
That's what
board
we have for the fly
recognizes
car
the
as well.
urgency of that, right.
The flight car most months arrives within less than 5 minutes,
Right.
50% of the time.
The fly car, I'm sorry, I left that part out. The fly car was also there, so it was the police, the fly car, and the fire trucks were all there. And then the ambulance, and I timed that, the ambulance was there. For the time I saw the police cars, less than 7 minutes.
And where was this?
On Chestnut Avenue in Village of Pelham, on last Thursday afternoon at around 4 o'clock.
The other thing we talked about was where we would house the ambulance. Right now, we don't have a place to house it, but somebody came up with an idea, who was that this morning, that came up with the idea that we would house it by the library.
Oh, and the piece of.
There's a piece of
land.
county property land there that we might be able to negotiate to
Right.
put the ambulance.
So we'd have the fly car in Pelham Manor, and we'd have the ambulance
Yeah,
in
on
Pelham.
Entrance to the
wouldn't it
highway.
be
They don't have any room for us at
West corner.
either firehouse, they have no room for us at either firehouse, so.
The fly car currently sits in Pelham Manor, in the back over there.
Does it have to be enclosed?
It's got medication on it, it has to be kept cold.
Yeah.
And you have to have,
No,
a place-
enclosed like in a,
It should be.
Structure.
in a garage?
Yeah.
It should be in a
Cars
bed.
in the garage.
Yeah, the fly car's in the garage.
And you have to
And the
have-
ambulance should be in some type of bed.
Garage as well, yeah.
And you have to have accommodations for the crew,
For the crew.
because they're 12-hour shifts.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Well, I really appreciate your comment. Jonathan, I appreciate your comment. And Steve, we'll get that information, how many got transported. My guess is gonna be probably close to 80%, but I don't know. But we can easily get that.
I'll look at last year's total stats and I'll send them to you, okay? Or I'll share them on the town website.
Eastchester is supposed to come back to us with a hybrid for the rest of the year. For instance, like planting an ambulance closer to us here and keeping the fly car. And then next year, when we get the budget through, get the ambulance and the whole thing, so.
At the same time, we're trying to use every contact we have to secure monies to do this so that we can defray some of the costs, whether it's for operations. This board has a lot of contacts in the Senate and the Assembly to try to get some money. You know, there's a lot of federal money. This community is not gonna qualify for the level of poverty that you would get the federal money for. So we have to look at other ways. I just want to sincerely say to the public and to everybody here, this has been a subject that is discussed every day at this town. It is not forgotten. It is not pushed aside. It is #1 priority. It's just that we don't have a lot of choices. And that's sad. It's sad to me as a medical professional myself that you don't have a lot of choices and that we're kind of being pigeonholed. We are into two paths. And we have to decide which path interimly is best for us and ultimately, permanently what's best for us. And that's where we are. I just don't want anybody to think that we have pushed this to the side and that it is not a priority. It is. As you can see by this special meeting. The other thing I will say is that I had a personal conversation with the owner of Empress regarding this incident. I was extremely disappointed that I had to find out about this, I said it through the streets, because I was notified.
It was through the streets.
It should never be that way. You're right. It should never be that way. I should have been called immediately. Immediately, whether it was midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., it doesn't matter. My phone is next to me 24/7. And I told him that. And he sincerely apologized and said it wouldn't happen again. And I said, I hope never again.
He apologized the last time when you told me that you spoke to him about my
Yes, I
son.
did.
So, I mean, how many times are you gonna apologize?
I know,
I'm not
I-
saying it to you, but.
I know
and
that.
I hope you said it to him. How many apologies?
I did.
Well, I think going with what you just said, that's why we did this.
Right.
We kind of told them, look, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So we're gonna go out and look for somebody else. And Eastchester is very interested in doing something, and that's closer. I called up the governor's office, the county executive office 6 weeks ago when I heard that they got 4 ambulances.
In Mount Vernon.
No,
Oh,
they
the
got
AMR.
Westchester.
Oh, the AMR.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I asked her, the person in charge, if we could get one of those ambulances hanging out here, and she said they're hanging out in
Yonkers.
Cross County. But she said she would keep an eye out, if you will. But that's AMR, and when we had that issue at the school with the gummies,
Yeah.
AMR showed up. So, I mean, that's a good thing. AMR showed up, your mother? Yeah.
Dan, if you could just clarify what AMR is for everyone?
Yeah, for Westchester County, all of
Right.
Westchester County.
Okay.
It's an ambulance, another ambulance
Company that covers all of Westchester County. Thank you.
Well, you know, I welcome any other ideas from anybody who has any other ideas of another path to go down. I welcome them. We welcome them.
And email addresses are on the website. So if you have any thoughts, please.
I think you should seriously consider the private effort like they're doing for the fitness facility. I mean, they've made great headway, and, I mean, people are lending their time to do videos and this and that, I'm just saying, like, I mean, I think it's a serious consideration if the tax dollars are not going to support it.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow what you were saying.
So there's a private effort right now.
Oh, for the
I'm saying
full-
that's-
Fitness
that's-
center.
That's a
Fitness
very
center.
serious consideration.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
yep,
Yes,
Yep.
it's kind of sad to me. I've lived here 45 years, 55 years maybe. That's getting more attention.
Well, I mean,
It's sad that
there
that
are
gets
more
more
athletes
attention.
than there are, thankfully, people that have had these ambulance emergencies, so
Right.
it's a supply and demand in terms of attention, sadly, and I think the people who are here today have, you know, a reason to
A
pay
vested
attention to it.
interest, sure.
And, you know, it is sad, but it's the reality, so.
The squeaky wheel always gets.
I thank you, I thank everybody for coming. Do you need help getting downstairs?
No, I'm fine,
You
I go
sure?
one by one, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Because this is the other thing we
And-
got, we're waiting to do,
Yeah.
we're waiting to get the police out so we can now have
Go
them
downstairs.
So we
Yeah.
can have our meetings down there.
So, Thank you.
Good,
Thank you very
thank you
much.
all.
Do we have anything else that we